Thank you, Lord.
And welcome once again, my brothers and sisters, to another Living Hope Today study. Today we find ourselves in 2 Samuel 8. And today we see God in action behind the scenes. All right, you know, God has had a goal for his people since he delivered them out of Egypt, and that was to put them in the promised land. And they were commanded to fight against all those pagan, idolatrous nations that occupied the promised land and to remove them. But we saw in the book of Joshua, we saw in the book of Judges that the occupation was less than stellar. They didn't really get it completely done. King Saul was brought into the picture in the book of 1 Samuel, and he didn't obey God. He didn't get it done. But now we see King David, the one God has anointed, the one who has a heart for God, and he, through the power of God, is getting it done. In fact, let's just look at it together this morning. God is using him to accomplish his purpose. In the course of time, what does David do? It says David defeated the Philistines. Now that's just a little sentence, right? But that's a huge statement. Why? Because the Philistines were a powerful people. They had oppressed Israel for literally decades. And now David rolls in under the power of God and basically, well, it says right there, he subdued them. Now you guys are working for me. I mean, you're doing whatever I tell you to do. David has conquered them. And he took Metheg Ammah from the control of the Philistines. So he's getting land as he fights against his enemies. David also defeated the Moabites. Well, the Moabites were a terrible problem for the Israelites as they journeyed from Sinai into the promised land. Well, David defeats them. He made them lie down on the ground. Listen to this. And he measured them off with a length of cord. Every 2 lengths of them were put to death, and the 3rd length was allowed to live. So the Moabites became subject to David and brought tribute. So now we see the Philistines are under the control of David, the Moabites are under the control of David. You see the brutality of war in this time. They're not going to assume that anybody's going to have a change of heart and come over to David's side. No, if you're a Moabite, you're definitely an enemy of God to be eliminated. And David eliminates 2 out of 3. And they start giving him stuff, right? They brought tribute to David. So now he's getting land. He's getting people that are subject to him, and they're bringing him gifts as he continues to do what God has put before him. Moreover, David fought Hadadezer, son of Rahab, king of Zobah, when he went to restore his control along the Euphrates River. So now he's way east of Jerusalem and in the Palestine area, but David has it in his heart that he's going to also control this region. David captured 1,000 of his chariots, 7,000 charioteers, and 20,000 foot soldiers. He hamstrung all but 100 of the chariot horses. In other words, David is a fearsome warrior. And if you are attacked by David, you can expect to be defeated, have most of your guys eliminated, if not all. And he's going to damage, well, here he hamstrings all but 100 horses. He is becoming more and more and more powerful, more fearsome as a warrior, as God is using his life to eliminate the pagan idolatry around his people. When the Arameans of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, king of Zobah, David struck down 22,000 of them. So now we're north, up by Damascus. That city remains to today. It's in Syria. David is fighting now on that front and achieving what? Total victory, wiping them out. He put garrisons in the Aramean kingdom of Damascus, and the Arameans became subject to him. Okay, so now we have Hadadezer's guys are now subject to David. The Moabites, the Philistines, and now the Arameans are subject to David, right? And again, they bring him tribute. But here's the line you need to see. The Lord gave David victory wherever he went. The text wants to make sure we understand that God is ultimately the victor as all these scenarios play out. It appears David's a fierce warrior, and it appears that he is able to conquer whoever's around him, but we see that that's happening because the Lord is opening these doors and causing these victories and allowing David to succeed in every area. Why would the Lord do that? Well, we know the goal of the Lord is to get these pagan idolatrous nations out of his promised land. That's one of his goals, and since nobody up until this point has been able to fully realize that, David is being tasked with the job, and he's doing it under the Lord's power. But the second reason this is happening is because David's willing to say to the Lord, I know it's you. I'm not letting this go to my head. I'm not being king of all and everybody needs to bow down before me. I'm going to bow down before you, Lord. You're the Almighty One. You're the one that picked me to do this, and you're the one that's bringing me the success. This is something you and I need to hold on to in our daily lives, that the Lord himself is going to accomplish his purpose through us if we are willing to lay our lives down, acknowledge him in every area, and walk with him as he commands us. Notice, David isn't afraid. We don't have a verse about how David didn't know what to do. He prays to the Lord when he doesn't know what to do. He isn't afraid because he knows the Lord is with him. Insightful for us, truly. David took the gold shields that belonged to the officers of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem. Again, more bounty, more plunder, as they called it. From Teba and Berothai, towns that belonged to Hadadezer, King David took a great quantity of bronze. Well, to the victor go the spoils, right? So David is acquiring wealth along with territory, along with the subjugation of his enemies. When Tau, king of Hamath, heard that David had defeated the entire army of Hadadezer, that's a pretty big deal, he sent his son Joram to King David. To greet him, to congratulate him on his victory in the battle over Hadadezer. That's how politicians roll, right? Find the one that's going to win and saddle up. Try to be nice to that one, right? Who had been at war with Joram brought with him articles of silver and gold and bronze. Again, now David is receiving alliances as his political power grows in the region. People are bringing him valuables. Why? Because they don't want to be attacked. They don't want to be viewed as his enemy. They want to be viewed as his ally. King David dedicated these articles to the Lord. Oh, what? King David dedicated these articles to the Lord. Notice how the text keeps bringing us back to the fact that although David's subjugating all these kingdoms to himself, he himself is subjugated to the Lord. He is willing to do all that God has for him. He is willing to rely on the power of God to get it done. So when he receives these goods, Lord, these are yours. They're not mine. You're the reason I got them. It belongs to you. As he had done with all the silver and gold from all the nations he had subdued. This was a pattern in his life. God, I'm not enriching myself. I dedicate everything that's come in here to you. Edom and Moab and the Ammonites and the Philistines and Amalek. He also dedicated the plunder taken from Hadadezer, son of Rahab, king of Zobah. So all this gain that David is acquiring, he sees as a result of God's hand, and he dedicates it back to him. Isn't that how we as Christians are called to live? God, everything I have is yours. You gave me the power to earn. I'm going to lay my life down as a living sacrifice in relationship with Jesus Christ. I'm going to deny myself. I'm going to take up my cross. I'm going to follow you. I'll go wherever you want me to go. Everything I have is available to you to be used according to your purpose. That's the same attitude we see David having here in 2 Samuel 8. It's a good lesson for us. God is blessing him because of that attitude. We need to realize that and look at our own lives and say, am I modeling the same characteristics David's modeling? Sure, we might not be kings and we might not be conquering kingdoms, but we still have the choice every day to lay our lives down, to consider our things as belonging to the Lord, to consider whatever task he has before us. We are required to obey him and allow him to accomplish his purpose in our lives, and we dedicate it all back to him. That's the pattern we see here. David became famous. I bet he did. Yeah, in fact, he became fearsomely famous. People were probably very afraid if they heard that the Israelites were marching toward their country, right? David became famous after he returned from striking down 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. Again, God is clearing the land and allowing his people to occupy the land, which was his intention for centuries, right? He put garrisons throughout Edom, and all the Edomites became subject to David. But here's that line again. The Lord gave David victory wherever he went. So we see both things. We see God's action, we see David's response. God's action, David's obedience. God's action, David's dedicating everything back to God. Very important for us to realize the cycle of what's happening here. David reigned over all Israel. So we have a united kingdom now with a solo king. The monarchy is well established. And look at this. He was doing what was just and right for all his people. Power hasn't gone to David's head, right? They say absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, David has maintained his subjugation to the Lord, his willingness to follow God, his acknowledgement that God has given every victory, and he's willing to acknowledge as well that the people that he is over are people that he needs to serve in a godly way, to make sure that they have all the blessings that God is giving, that he's not hoarding things for himself. He's very generous. He's doing what's just and right. How many politicians can you say that about? Joab, son of Zeruiah, was over the army. Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, was recorder. Zadok, son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, son of Abiathar, were priests. Zeriah was secretary. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, I'm having trouble, was over the Kerethites and the Pelethites, and David's sons were royal advisors. So what do we get out of all this? We see now at the end of the chapter, these are the guys that are serving in the monarchy to do the bidding of the king. But the real lesson of the chapter is do what God wants you to do and give him the glory for accomplishing his purpose in your life, and treat everything you have as if it belongs to him, and let him use it however he wants. He will lead us, he will guide us, he will give us that victory, that dedicated victory, if we give it back to him. I hope you learned that lesson today, church. God bless you. Serve him well.
Who is it who for sinners shed his blood, and now for cleansing all can plunge beneath that flood? It's Jesus. But do